Tech Nuggets, GNS3 overview. Today we're going to talk about GNS3, Generic Network Simulator version 3. GNS3 is a very unique piece of software. It provides a GUI environment, so we're talking clicks and pulls and drags and drops and the full GUI experience that you might have in Windows or desktop Linux. And it allows us to study network traffic across those GUI links, and each of the components of equipment are actually running pieces of software that will generate that traffic. So this is not a picture that you're looking at, or rather it's more than a picture that you're looking at. The equipment is virtualized network equipment that's generating real packets that really go across these links that you can look at with Wireshark or with other tools. So you can have a fully functioning network that actually runs real traffic, depending on how you set up GNS's inputs and outputs. You can run real traffic in and out and through it. It allows you to play with this kind of equipment in a real environment, in an actual working software kind of way. And most importantly, it's in a resettable environment. So it lets you stop after you've mucked it all up and said, okay, I want to start over and I want to go back and try something different. It allows you to reset all that back to where you started and do it again differently, and do it again and do it again. Oftentimes in real life, when we're working with this equipment, resetting it can mean outages for users. It can mean outages for your lab. It can mean that everything's down for a long period of time while you go through and reset it back to whatever point you wanted to be at. And while GNS3 doesn't make it stupidly easy to reset it, it at least makes it possible, which is one of the reasons we use it, because it allows students to go through and work with it in an environment where they're not going to affect anybody else, and they can reset it back to the beginning and try again. Next, I'll take us into a virtual machine that's got GNS installed on it in a Linux environment, and we'll be able to go through some basic network setups, and I'll talk about some of the basic shapes and things like that. Alright, so here we've got my Ubuntu 1804 desktop VM. I've already installed GNS3 and all the other subsystems that need to go with it. This is not a video about how to install all that. This is a video about how to use GNS3. If there's a need, I can go back and create another video about how to install GNS3 if people want to do that on their own machines. It requires VirtualBox and some other things as underpinnings to run some of the components inside GNS3, and getting those linkages set up can be a little complex. So starting GNS3 is this little lizard icon over here on the side, and you give it a click and it should start it up. Now, this is open source software, which is not a bad thing. It's a wonderful thing, but sometimes it can be kind of slow, and the UI can be a little difficult to understand at parts. So that's part of the reason I'm doing this video, is to walk people through some of this stuff so it's less frustrating. So the first thing we're presented with is new project, and the lighter color here tells us that's the active tab. That was not always clear when I was working with this in the past. So again, that's why I go through it. If we had a project that already existed, we could click on the projects library here and it would show us projects that were already in play. And since we don't have one, we will start a new one and we'll call it test project 1. And it will create a folder there that you can see called test project 1. And we click OK. And it will go and create a new blank. Doesn't look very exciting. Before I go a whole lot farther, I'm going to go to the view settings, and I'm going to have you set a couple of view settings that I think are going to make your life easier in the long term. So we're going to want to turn on Snap to Grid. If you've worked with any kind of Visio or Draw.io, sometimes it's nice to have the little icon snap to a spot and everything kind of squares up, and it makes it a little nicer, looks a little nicer, and might be a little easier, less frustrating to work with. We're also going to say show the grid, which is just going to show us the snap grid that we've got so we can see where things are going to land and are going to be. Some of the other things that are useful down here, later once we have icons on, we'll be able to see their interface labels like ETH0, ETH1, ETH2. We can reset those, we can turn them on and off. The docs menu here shows one active. You can see console has a check mark next to it, which is this box at the bottom. And in fact, we're going to turn it off, which will give us more screen space to work with. Not super worried about the console messages that may or may not come up. If you begin to have errors, definitely go back and look at the console. It's very useful for that. As I said earlier, some of this can be a little confusing to work with. So I'm going to go over the icons and I'm going to set up a basic network that is just going to get us to the outside world and ping and stuff like that. We'll go over some of the real basic shapes. I'm going to do additional GNS3 videos that are going to have advanced features in it, but this is going to be a quickie to just kind of get us down the path with GNS3. So we're going to click on this icon here, which apparently has no mouse tool. Oh, there we go, browse all devices. And it's going to show us all the devices, and you can see at the top it says installed appliances. So these are going to be, we'll have a cloud, which could be anything. We can define the cloud to go different places. We can use an Ethernet hub. We can use an Ethernet switch. We'll be using a variety of Ethernet switches. We've got a NAT object, which is going to be very useful for getting to the outside world. And while in our classes we may not have covered what NAT means, we're going to talk a little about it here just so that we can get it in play. We're going to grab a NAT. We're going to grab an Ethernet switch so that we've got something to connect between our NAT and something else. And we're going to grab this thing called VPS, which is a virtual PC. It's a little teeny peewee OS that will get us moving. And we can close that when we're done. And this gets us 3 objects, and they're not connected, but they're here. And we're going to go over, I'm assuming this is the connection, add a link. I would have called it connection. And we click on it, and you can see it's got the little red icon, meaning I'm in connection mode. And I'm going to click on my NAT, and it's going to ask me which of my Ethernet ports do I want to connect to. And I've only got one, NAT 0. So we select that. And now I'm pulling this string around, which is our Ethernet cable, virtual Ethernet cable. And we're going to click on, and you can see the mouse tool here tells us which ports are empty. And I'm going to click on it, and it's going to ask me which Ethernet port I want to connect to. And I usually, I guess I'll do 0. It doesn't. In this case, it doesn't matter. The little green lights mean, hey, the link's active, it's hot, it's running, the world's moving on, that's good. We're going to do it again, and you'll see this time ETH0 is taken, so we have to pick something that's not in play. And we'll pick ETH1, and we'll connect it to our VPC, which only has one Ethernet card. We click on that, and you'll see that one side's green and the other side's red. So some objects come out of our objects, and they're already running. You don't have to turn the virtual Ethernet switch on and off. You don't have to turn the NAT on and off. They're already running. But other objects, and especially some of our VirtualBox objects, where we'll have a full-blown Linux install or something like that, a Voyos object that you might have seen in the list, those will actually have to go through a boot process just like they would if they were a real PC. We're going to come out of connection mode. By clicking on it, you see the little icon goes away. And we're going to go up to the play button. And this is going to work just like, play and stop and pause and all that kind of stuff that you might have on a music player. And I will hit play, which will turn the little green thing on, which means I've just powered on our virtual PC here. And you're going to say, well, how do we get to it? I right-click on it, and I go to console. You see there's a ton of different options in here, including start and stop. We want to go to console. This will pop up a virtual console that will take me to my PC. This PC is a great test object, but is extremely limited in what it can do. It's not even a full-blown Linux kernel. It's a really basic object, and we can hit question mark on it, and it'll give us some choices. You can see these are all of our choices. One of the first things we're going to do is we're going to type DHCP, because we wanted to get a connection with the outside world and get an IP address. And again, if we haven't covered DHCP in class, that's okay. It'll be an advanced feature. I'm just giving an overview to show that it works and does things we expect it to do. So DHCP. You can see that's up here. That's one of the options on the list right under clear is DHCP. And I can give it a variety of other things it's going to do. And I'm going to type DHCP. It's going to go through its DORA process. When you learn about DHCP, you'll learn what DORA is. Discover, Offer, Request, ACK. And you'll see it goes out and gets an IP address with the NAT cloud here. And the NAT is providing DHCP services to the inside of our network, and it's providing a NAT connection to the rest of the outside world. So if I said something like ping, and that is a Google DNS server that's public, we're able to ping. And so we'll be able to see ping packets that zoom along out through here and out through here. And I can do that by highlighting the link and right-click on it and say Start Capture. And we're going to ask, well, what's the link type? Well, we're going to leave it alone for right now because we're going to take the default choices. Click on OK. It's going to start Wireshark. Same Wireshark we're going to use in class. We're going to use other places. It's going to immediately start sniffing on that link. So we should be able to go back and look at it ping 5 times and stop. That's just the way the ping works here. But as I start pinging, we're going to see ping packets go by. And we can sniff that specific link and watch what's going on. If we want to watch other links, we can do that. We can go back to GNS3, and you'll notice the little icon here is showing me what I'm Wiresharking. When you're all done, you go to Wireshark. You can stop the capture, shut it off. You can save your captures. Quit without saving in this case. We can go back to the console menu and close it out. And we can hit stop, which will just, in this case, will only shut down the virtual PC. You see the link goes away and it's red now. This is a basic overview of what you can do in GNS3. There'll be more videos later that cover much more advanced topics where we've got some more fancy objects in play. We'll have some full-blown routers. We'll have some full-blown operating systems like Linux desktop. GNS3 will, in fact, emulate Cisco ROMs. The legality of that is something that you should look into if you're going to do that, because there's some legal issues that go with that. There are a variety of emulated ROMs from HP that are free that will give you a full suite of routing, switching, firewalling options and opportunities. We'll use some of them in class, and I have them pre-built over here, and we'll explore those in future labs.